Following the destruction of King's Landing, Tyrion and Jon are faced with a chilling reality, and the choices made will change the face of Westeros forever. It has been an 8-year cultural phenomenon wrapped up in a beautifully shot and emotionally powerful series finale. It is the end of Game of Thrones, Season 8, Episode 6, The Iron Throne. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our final review of Game of Thrones. So, yes, of course, lots of spoilers ahead. And as always, you can always check out our quick jump index system. Take a look down in the description below. We'll have a whole listing breakdown of this review, little time code jumps. You can come back, rewatch your favorite parts, watch the review in any order you want. So, yeah, this is it. A certain level of sadness, I have to say, and excitement, to be honest. I know there's been a lot of debates about the quality of this season, and I can certainly attest to a feeling of maybe rushed a little. Maybe the shorter episodes haven't fully served storyline purposes. I think each individual episode has had great stuff happening, but there have been story, character, emotional changes that maybe between episodes and pushed a little fast. Perhaps that's budgetary reasons. They have X amount of money, can only do so many episodes. Regardless, the quality of visual storytelling that has been, especially these past couple episodes, have been astounding. And as a way to wrap up this show, I don't think anybody can argue with the amazing cinematography, the beautiful shots, the visual storytelling in so many scenes, often with very little dialogue, giving us so much, relating so much emotion, so much character. Really, if there is one thing that I can say about this episode completely, is just how beautiful it was. The images that were presented with us was just astounding. I mean, just sort of a brief summation at the beginning of the episode. Tyrion coming in, quiet, seeing the destruction around him. I mean, that's the saddest little person's face I've ever seen. Sort of been a lot of Tyrion shot lately. It's Tyrion's sad moments. But here, just astounding, and seeing the bodies, the children, the guy walking back who's all burnt, then you turn around and it's like half his back is missing, his spine is holding out. Just the horror and the sadness and the terror that walking through this just nuclear zone. I mean, really, imagine there's no way that anybody has seen this type of power in Westeros, at least for a very long time. Certainly no one in any recent memory. It was shocking. Coming up and finally ending at the mother and daughter burnt, embracing bodies, the ones that Arya knew, that had tried to save and had to leave behind. You can visually connecting these storylines. And just his quietness there, the only thing we're hearing is, I will see you later. I'm going alone. Just everything that's being held. Peter Dinklage, for a final episode, man, he put everything into this. Certainly followed up by going to look for Jaime and Cersei. Just the quiet movement, going through the wreckage of King's Landing and then into the Red Keep. And it just, again, much like the dream sequence that we had back in Season 2 at the House of the Undying with Dany. And we'll get to that shortly. But just, again, the quietness of it, all of it was so disturbing. Going down the steps, finding the piles they're climbing up and over, and then seeing Jaime's hand popping out of the rubble. Just the emotionalness of pulling that. Again, no dialogue, nothing being said. It's all just emotion and visual. It was such a powerful scene. It's starting this off gets us so involved, gets us emotionally so intense. It was astounding. We get the standoff between Jon and Grey Worm, the executions there, which tells its own story. Do want to know, how did Grey Worm, he meets up with Jon, Jon leaves to go talk to Dany. How did Grey Worm get up to the Red Keep before Jon did? I don't know, maybe he had a shortcut. They forced Jon to take the long route. Can't exactly tell. But yeah, and all of that, the Dothraki cheering and hunting, and the unsullied, quiet standing. I mean, just the strength and the power of all of those images, cheering to Drogon flying over. We get that beautiful shot of Dany as she is revealed, and Drogon's wings come up behind her. And she's in all that black and regalia, and the armies around. I mean, it's, again, just chilling. The Dragon Queen of Westeros has arrived. I know, I'm just gushing here. But all of this is and it's perfect storytelling, too. They summed up the whole emotional journey, I think. The questions that we've had is maybe Dany's change has been too rushed. Maybe, you know, these things didn't happen, that it seems like a change of character. What I think that they do in the beginning part of this episode is really explain how it hasn't been. I mean, the shot of Dany over her troops talking about, you've done what you have and now we're going to free everyone. We'll go everywhere from Westeros to Dorne, east to west. We'll free everyone. Speaking very much like a tyrannical leader. And I think that's where we have that perfect switch right there, is now that she has gotten what she's wanted, she is not going to stop. And I think that was chillingly brought to terms right there in that scene. And again, we're seeing all of these reactions. Tyrion coming up, throwing away his hand. You freed your brother. Yes, I freed my brother, and you slaughtered a city. Just they didn't waste any time in this episode. For sure. They got their storytelling down right on. But not overly so. I mean, I think every moment that was spent was used wisely. And then we get the scene between Jon and Tyrion. Look, like I said, there's a lot of amazing scenes. I can name an awesome scene, an awesome moment every 2.5 minutes of this 80-minute episode. That's how much amazing. Oh, didn't even mention one of the most beautiful shots early on when Tyrion is walking through the crowd and he walks past the bell for surrender. He walks past that, and then the camera pans up to the destroyed image of the Red Keep in the background. I mean, again, these are paintings. These are images that will never look bad. The color composition, the placement of imagery, the connection of ideas was just astoundingly well done. And then, as I said, we get to that scene with Jon and Tyrion. And as I said, so many great moments that I will keep hitting on. But this was the changer right here. This was the most important part of the entire episode. It is our Scene of the Week for this week. And that is how everything is summed up. It's how everything is apologized for. It is how the necessary is made clear of why it has to be done. Tyrion walks through his entire journey, the mistakes that he has made, even the whole idea of, I betrayed my best friend and now his ashes will be able to tell my ashes, I told you so. The acceptance of what has happened, and he did it, and he was there because he believed in Dany, and now there's no denying what Dany is going to continue to do. Like Issa told Jon, does this look like someone who is going to stop? She will free everyone, everywhere, until she rules them all. It is an admittance of complicitness. It is an admittance of truth. And it is a clear discussion of what Jon has to do. Everything that needed to be said was summed up in that one scene with a whole breadth of emotion, with wonderful points made. I mean, it was just, it was powerful. Each individual moment in there just told its own story. And by the end, when Jon, who is denying it the exact same way Tyrion did. I mean, and that's the kind of funny thing is Jon's accusing Tyrion, you were there. Yes, I was, because I believed in her, because I loved her. Not as successfully as you, but still in his own way, which is how Dany works. She inspires that. I mean, I think the best statement was, which was when Tyrion is talking about she burned people alive. She she betrayed, turned on the slavers. She crucified the nobles. She burned the Dothraki, but these were all evil men, and we cheered her for it. All of these harsh things, these ruthless things that she has done, we have cheered her for it. Of course, she is embracing the idea that she is unique, that only she can free and save these people. She inspires the love around her because she is turning her initial sights on bad people. But once it goes too far, then everybody can be bad in her eyes. Which, of course, leads us to the final scene between Jon and Dany. Now, I think, despite all of Tyrion's pleadings throughout that scene, the fact that Jon is still willing to stand by Dany, despite all the death, the destruction, the fear of what could be to come, and it's very clear, I think, to both Jon and Tyrion of what is to come, of Jon still willing to stand beside Dany. He loves her. He's committed to her. Like I was saying, the same mistakes that Tyrion had made. The blindness of love. Love is the death of duty. I love that callback to Master Aemon right there. But it's not until Sansa and Arya are brought up, his sisters, that I think Jon really makes that final shift, maybe finally accepts what it is that he has to do. Because his love may blind him to allegiance and dedication, and maybe even turn a blind eye around what's happening in the world, at least for a short while. I think eventually Dany would have killed him, seeing a threat. But Sansa's never going to bend a knee, and I think that that's something reiterated throughout this episode. And I think rightfully so. I think that's something that Sansa has earned in her belief in the North. But in Dany's speech there, she had said, I mentioned before, from Winterfell to Dorne, she is including her ally of people that she's going to free from the yoke of tyrants. So she's already set her sights on Sansa. So Tyrion has to bring her up. The girls will never bend a knee. You will to your queen. No, she won't. You should know her better. You know what's going to happen. That's what he I mean, he knows his sisters too well, and that's what has to change his mind, which just gets us to his fateful choice and that beautiful throne room scene. As I said, scenes of the week all over the place. I had to pick one. But this is awesome because we have Dany in the throne room, mimicking almost exactly the scene, her dream from the House of the Undying back in season 2. A throne room full of, well, here it seems to be ice. Could be ash and ice. A nice blending of these two. Which, again, another beautiful shot with Drogon underneath all of the snow as Jon's walking up and just shakes off and inspects. All right, you could go on. Maybe Drogon's getting more used to the snow here. It's winter everywhere. But again, just a hypnotic scene inside the throne room there, where Dany is finally where she's supposed to be, where she has decided that she's going, where her destiny has led her. With the caress and a moment and Jon walking in and distracting. Notice she never sits in the Iron Throne. She touches it. She looks at it. Never does get a chance to actually sit in it. Just a small moment. But just the lightheartedness, she's telling the story of the Iron Throne. It's 1,000 swords, and what if it's a small girl who can't even count to 20? How big what it is? Here, I think, actually referencing the book, where the Iron Throne is this massive, giant thing. So here, I think, was kind of a cool reference. But the idea, it's so big that you could barely see his feet. It's so gigantic. And she's telling this lighthearted story, and Jon doesn't even take a breath. There are burnt children in the streets. They're executing soldiers. You should just forgive them. What is... Just interrupts her little moment of reverie there. Again, quick to the point, like that about Jon. And it leads to that exchange where, Dany is pleading with her. I mean, really, opening her heart. She does want, but it's the same. It's the delusion created by her success. She has gotten what she has wanted, and now she is believing her own hype. She's believing in her own potential godhood there. And the idea, I think the turning point is a line about being good. Well, how do we know what's good? Well, I know what's good, and you know what's good. What about everyone else? They don't get a choice. Despite all of her flowery language, despite all of her high ideals, her breaking of the wheel is really just replacing it with the same thing in a different form. And she has the same tyrannical viewpoint that only she knows what's best for the world. What about mercy? We will be giving mercy. Same thing. We're giving mercy to the future generations that don't have to live under this conditions. But everybody who knows of the old world, they're going to have to go. We can't have their memories around. Which doesn't sound good things for Bran. So yeah, I mean, it was a perfect thing because it's Dany again reaching for that love. She wants that companionship. She believes honestly she's doing the right thing. But that's what crazy people do. They do crazy things and they think it's for the higher good. And whenever you're sacrificing, burning, torching children in the streets for a higher good, your higher good is wrong. Just as a general rule. Which, of course, leads to the stabby-stabby and the die-die. And a goodbye to Daenerys. Had to happen. Like I said, Dany would have killed Jon. And I think he had to see that. It may not have been right now, even if they stayed together. Eventually, the threat of who Jon was would overrule Dany. She would see that as a threat to her destiny, and she would take him out, even loving him. Which is why Jon had to do that. Take her out, even loving her. A beautiful shot of Drogon reacting to it in the background. The sounds flying in. The stare off with Jon, almost going to torch Jon. Jon standing there firm, accepting his fate, which is always the sign of a good character right there. And then the destruction of the Iron Throne. The only way it could have ended. The Iron Throne must be gone. Again, beautiful shot. God, so many great shots with Drogon. When Dany was giving her speech and Drogon staring in the background, crying out over the troops. Amazing. Drogon coming in here, staring down at the dead body of Dany, his mom, with Jon over. Beautiful shot. Drogon torching the Iron Throne and the slag coming down. Incredible shot. Just perfect and beautiful and frightening, and the only way that it could be done. And then takes the mother dragons and flies off, hopefully eastward. Go back over the Narrow Sea. Dany never should have come over. She should have stayed over in Meereen and ruled over there. Not come over here. I think that's where Drogon was taking her back to. But yeah, so it was sad, but I think the only way to end it. And the fact that there is no more Iron Throne, maybe the most appropriate point. So yeah, the question of who would end up sitting in the Iron Throne has perplexed many of us, engaged a lot of conversation over the years. And in fact, the fact that maybe nobody at the end sits on the Iron Throne, a definite possibility, one that I ascribe to personally. The fact that nobody would sit on the Iron Throne because it was melted by a dragon into a metal puddle of slag. Not the way I imagined it to go, but I think kind of appropriate. That Drogon destroys the throne. Dany did want to change things, wanted to break the wheel. It has been her obsession to get to, so not having it for a dragon, yeah, fine. She can't have it, nobody can have it. That's how we're going to change things. So, a beautiful and appropriate image. But dealing with what comes next, of course, an important part of sort of wrapping up this storyline. And I think overall they did well. A little, like I said, a little bit Hollywood at some points, especially kind of some of our final shots that we got. But intelligent way of actually trying to change the world and how all the characters sort of came together and contributed. I like seeing the time passing again, opening up with another sad Tyrion face. More beard, obviously, passage of time. The fact that he and Jon still alive. Little surprising if the Unsullied's still there. It was like if the other one bows down to Jon, which is where I'm expecting it to go, or they execute him, which is what they want to do. Being a prisoner, not so much where I thought it would be, but again, the whole summation of what happens next. The lords gathered together. The idea that they were going to have to choose who should lead amongst them. Edmure Tully's God, that was awesome. How he sits there for a moment. How is that guy still alive anyway? He survived a lot that he shouldn't have. Just his name and position, I suppose. But standing up to try and give his resume of why he should be chosen, as a thought of like, well, I guess somebody's going to have to stand up and do it. Sit down, uncle. Kind of laughing, just not just. It was just a hilarious scene. They did set in some nice humorous moments here, especially Sam presenting democracy. Again, another theory. What happens? Well, everybody rules. We're gonna move into some democratic area. No, laughed off. It was just again sweetly proposed, and then just sort of laughed off. We let the people decide. No. Of course we wouldn't do that. That's just crazy talk. But the idea, Bran as the king, definitely not where I was expecting it to go. And it makes, again, once these things happen, it makes perfect sense, because what else is Bran's position to have been? Bait for the Night King and telling Jon that he's royalty. Really, in the larger scheme of things, that's what Bran has done over the course of this entire show. So the fact that he ends up being king, he can use the position of Three-Eye Raven to rule wisely and dispassionately and honestly, I think is the perfect way to wrap it up. The fact that there are no more, that he can't have kids, great. Children of kings are horrible. I think that's sort of the line. It's so impetuous the children of kings can be, as Sansa well knows. The kings will be chosen. Amongst these realm, when one has died, another one will be chosen amongst everyone else, and their job is to serve the realm. It's a great way of sort of mixing things up, of compromises, which you tell Jon later on. It's their compromise, nobody likes it, which is what makes compromises good. But it's sort of perfect in how everybody sort of falls into line. Sam first, of course, and then Edmure. Backing up a Stark, that's awesome. And so everybody's seeing the wisdom in that this is something that is going to be different. Certainly Bran himself, a very different ruler, not interested in power. And then Sansa, again, continuing that she is not bending a knee to anyone. The North isn't anymore. She will back Bran as a king, but is not going to kneel. The North will be free. Again, continuing to change the face of Westeros. And Tyrion appropriately being a hand. He's a perfect hand. He's good at the job. The fact that he certainly doesn't want it, great. And Bran's line, he's made horrible mistakes. He will spend the rest of his life fixing them. A great way of looking at it. So, I mean, as a whole summation right there, I think that was an excellent decision. I think it was well come from. Again, more great speeches by Peter Dinklage, using his mistakes and the wisdom created by them to advise the best decisions. And I think after a horrible war like this, and them knowing how the rule from King's Landing has been, changing things up a little, probably a good idea. I love the makeup of the small council. First off, Brienne as head of the King's Guard, finishing up Jaime's story. Very honoring, very appropriate, very, very well done, tearful. Had to wait for a moment. It was like, is Brienne going to be pregnant? Are we going to sort of quietly carry on Jaime's line here? But no, didn't go that way. That probably went a little bit too much. But I think it's nice that she sort of ends him in an honorable fashion, finishes his story, and now takes position guarding the king, which is sort of a perfect continuance of Catelyn Stark's last command to her, protecting her children. So I thought that was nice. It was sort of an appropriate way. Bronn, master of coin. There's nothing else that really needs to be said about that. How hilarious is that? Has our debt to the master of coin been properly paid? Yes. Davos, master of ships. Excellent. Grand Maester Sam. Again, appropriate. It's nice. We have all these characters coming back together, filling important roles, changing the world around. We've got Bran possibly tracking down Drogon through warging. Now there's going to be, interesting potential side stories that were left in. I know the spin-off series looks like they're going to be prequels, but they are setting up just some great possible storyline. Just images of Bronn flying through Drogon's eyes, just checking out the world. Hilarious. So yeah, great small council. Sansa, of course, the Queen of the North. Very appropriate place for her. She always wanted to be royalty. She always wanted to have that high position, and now she has it, but with hard-earned experience that I think is going to make her a very wise and very compassionate ruler, as long as you don't mess with the North. Arya not going back up that way, turning pirate and heading west. What's west of Westeros? Nobody knows. That's where the maps end. So she's out being a pirate. So we got kind of everybody leading in their own way at the end. Bran, of course, King of the Six Kingdoms. Sansa, Queen of the North. Arya leading the charge off into the unknown. And Jon, back at the Night's Watch. There's just something so comically appropriate. So many returns of people to where they should belong. And maybe not the Night's Watch is where he belongs. Maybe it's a little north of that, north of the Wall. Maybe Jon gets to be the leader of the free folk. I wouldn't say the king beyond the Wall. Free folk aren't exactly like that. That was a Mance Rayder thing. I think Jon, less interested in kinglyship, but certainly Tormund is going to follow him. And he's got Wolf back, and he petted that wolf. That's all I want to see. You see Wolf, you see Ghost, give him a big pet, and he did. And that's all I needed to see that. But yeah, he's not going to be in the north. He's off. That was that whole last image, going north with the free folk. The wall closing behind him, that little smile on the face. Notice the bit of grass growing north of the wall there. Maybe some other changes coming up with the Night King gone. But yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave Jon. All of the Starks leading in their own fashion for what seems to be a better tomorrow. All right, just a couple of small things. One, we did, of course, have our final change in the opening animation. We will never hear that song again. I mean, not especially for new episodes. We can go back and watch the old ones as often as we want. But still, that was an emotional moment. Most everything the same. Big change, of course. King's Landing. Now pretty destroyed. Wrecked gates. Crumbled towers. All of that stuff. And, of course, the throne room. Also partially destroyed. And no, the window behind it had the Lannister lion in it. Now broken and gone. great if you actually look in that throne room scene as Dany walks in, that same mirror up there, same broken image, whatever was in it, gone, just a ring. So that was kind of cool. Grey Worm was definitely in a Lannister killing mood, wasn't he? Again, another early just shot for Jon of just how wrong everything had gone. Not that Grey Worm isn't ready to do the Queen's bidding, that's in fact what she's doing, but I think with the death of Missandei, that sort of encouraged him to go ahead and kill everyone they chose to follow. Not really the case with Cersei, but yeah, mercy, an important thing to learn. Though I have to appreciate in the final shot between Jon and Dany, or between Jon and Grey Worm, there's definitely some steely-eyedness. Did like that Grey Worm is heading to the Isle of Nath, where Missandei is from. He's going to protect the island. Is he going to bring back her body? I don't think so. Possibly. Still, a nice way. Still to honor his relationship with Missandei. Give Grey Worm a different tomorrow to look forward to. Oh, yeah, the small council scene when they bring out the book, The History Since the Death of Robert Baratheon, A Song of Ice and Fire. Funny, nice book reference. Also the fact that Tyrion isn't even mentioned in it. He gets no breaks at all. The Battle of Blackwater, he saved the city. It's a good hand. Oh, well. Now, I already mentioned just how strong and powerful, but I love the scene with Tyrion finding Cersei and Jaime and trying to dig them out and seeing them just in that embrace. It was just, again, that whole scene, that whole movement was just beautifully presented. But I couldn't stop thinking the way everything had sort of fallen down and collapsed that, God, Jaime and Cersei, if you were like 5 feet to the right, I think you would have been fine. Just those thoughts stick in my head. As I've said before, just there's a lot of amazing shots that were done. Just some beautiful cinematography, amazing color composition in so many of the scenes and shots that we saw tonight. But a couple in particular. One, the final shot between as Jon is leaving Tyrion, just before he goes and speaks with Dany there, and Tyrion had told him about what about Sansa, what's going to happen to the daughters. Just a beautiful shot of Jon in the front, very much in darkness, just a light shadow there, or a light, small bit of light at the edge of his face, and Tyrion in the background, sort of out of focus, and then they do that focus switch, and Tyrion's just, again, half in light, half in shadow. It's, again, all of this middle ground. Was just, again, a beautiful presentation, beautiful composition, and the color work in that was amazing. And then right afterwards, the transition to Jon goes from black, and then he steps out of shadow. With that commitment, that thought, that determined look. It was, again, a very powerful bit in showing how Jon is going through that transition. Same thing followed up right afterwards with Dany, actually, as she walks out, as she's heading up to the throne room, coming out of that darkness. So it's not a slow fade or anything. It's like black and then into light. Just wonderful use of that sort of color and contrast. Really striking. Tyrion's speech before he names Bran the Broken as the most likely is the best choice for king, I thought was kind of comically self-referential. The idea of the power of a story. All these things seem to be power and all can influence and so on, but a good story is what really drives people. Again, I felt that was a little self-referential to the books and the story of Game of Thrones itself and the impact and strength that it has had culturally across the world, really, for these past 8 years. So I think that was sort of an appropriate, interesting way of presenting that idea. And again, also Bran being king. What was the line? Would you be king? Why else do you think that I'm here? What do you think that I came down here for? So like I said, good. Bran, you should be king. Bran the Broken, long may he reign, because otherwise, not a whole big contribution to this story. And as usual, some great lines, callbacks to previous episodes. What was it when Tyrion's leaving Jon afterwards? as Tyrion's the hand and Jon's being sent to the Watch. God, you will have no children. You will not take a wife. You will have no children. You will end the Targaryen line here and now. I think that was sort of a subtle statement within that. But what was the line that Jon said? I don't suspect that we'll meet each other again. How many times? I think it's been a couple of times these two have traded that line back and forth. Again, it was just, one of those familiar bits. Same thing with kind of our final little bit from the small council as we're pulling away and they're dealing with all of the issues and everyone's telling their stories and Bronn and Davos are going after each other with little jibes and Tyrion starts off with this, I once took a donkey and a honeycomb into a bar. Again, how many times have we heard the beginning of that story? So it was sort of a perfect, well, we're continuing the story theme here, but sort of a perfect way of transition, of leading us to know that, yes, some things change, but many things remain the same. Oh, except for Sir Podrick. Again, that was awesome. I love that. So, that will wrap us up for Game of Thrones. An incredible series. Look, whatever issues you may have had with this last season, and I know a lot of you have, I don't think it can be denied the powerful impact that this show has had on television, on the culture, on what can be expected to be seen, the stories that can be told, what the audience will embrace. It has changed the landscape. And I think overall, it has been an amazing show. Like I said, even if you have some issues with the last season, there were tons of seasons beforehand that were riveting and grabbing and having us talking over. We would make water coolers to talk around. Has blown up the internet left and right, left us just asking for more at the end of every season. There are amazing compositions, and whether or not this is wrapped up to your personal satisfaction, I think it ended the way that it needed to. I think it followed, it told its story appropriately. Let's not forget, J.R.R. Martin has said that he's given the outline to Benioff and Weiss of how things were going to end. The bullet points of what was to occur. And yes, they may have tweaked and adjusted a few things. But the foreshadowing has existed through most of this direction all along. And by the way we see everything wrap up, I think it ends in really the most appropriate way possible. A little bit Hollywood ending at the end there with the wonderful shots of all the Starks doing their things and their stuff. I mean, they sort of win in this. Even Jon being sent to the north isn't really being exiled. Like Tormund said, he belongs in the north, the real north. So everyone gets appropriately, as Brian continues to say, exactly where they're supposed to be. And I just think, even from just a pure cinematography standpoint, the power of the visual storytelling that was done was just next level. And, it opens the doors for people to start telling their own stories. Be inspired by what you see, what you wanted to see. Tell your own stories. Reach out, create your own content, embrace new things. As much as we can encourage this type of storytelling, we have to. It's how we keep getting better and greater things out there. So, it has been such a joy to watch this show, to be part of these stories, to see how everything is laid out, to be introduced to amazing new actors, to see great performances from people that have been around and doing work for years, an astounding cast, an incredible bit of storytelling. I am so going to miss this show. But it's over now, and that's it. There's more stuff to come. Don't worry, I know HBO's probably got tons of stuff up their sleeve. I certainly hope HBO has tons of stuff up their sleeve, because otherwise they are so screwed. How many people are canceling their HBO accounts tomorrow? That's my question. Anyway, but that will, of course, wrap things up for us. Thank you all so so much for joining me with these reviews, for all of your comments, all of your thoughts. I can't always answer all of them. My life has been crazy lately, but I do read them all, and I certainly appreciate every moment you guys send, the feedback that you give, the thoughts that you share, the ideas that you have about the show. It just makes this palette of appreciative nerddom awesome. So thank you all so much for being on this ride together. Anyway, we'll do our final little bits. If you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments. Tell me all your thoughts. Good, bad, and different. What you liked, what you loved, what you hated, what you wish were different. Give me your thoughts. Throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please don't forget, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6. It is awesome. Going on right now. We will have Legion, its final season, coming up June 24th. And in August, we will have the final season of Preacher. A lot of wrapping up going on this year. It's going to leave me, what am I supposed to be waiting for if everything ends? Westworld. I think that'll be next year, but we'll have to wait. Anyway, don't miss any of those reviews. You won't if you're a subscriber. Do that by clicking this button right here. And we'll go ahead and throw up a few of our latest reviews right here for you to check out. So, that's it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.